Namaste all. So we will start our meeting today, which has as a subject the so-called five avastha, which means avastha means state or level or something like this. It's a term that is not only used about the states of consciousness or awareness, but also in pranayama and in other situation to define different levels. So if you just search avastha, you maybe find different kind of things. So just to be prepared for this. So these states of consciousness are a thing that is classical in the yoga tradition and in Indian spirituality, Hindu spirituality, because they are very common and easily to understand. Actually, I think the oldest mention of them it's in Mandukya Upanishad, where they are correlated with the mantra Om, which is spelled A-U-M. So each letter is one of the state of consciousness, and the silence is Turiya, is the fourth. But in Shaivism, of course, they have to add something, so we have a fifth with the other four that are traditionally encountered in the texts. So this fourth is that Turiyatita, which is beyond Turiya, which is more than Turiya, the fourth. So in today's lesson, we will follow the Shaiva way of describing them, which is not different from the other texts. So I just use this Shaiva text, which is called Shiva Sutras, and the commentary of this text, because it's part of Shaivi tradition, and it's easier for us to understand in the context of the other lessons. So first of all, they speak about this Turiya as a background for the other states. So Turiya, the fourth, is the pure subjectivity, is the pure I, on which the other three states are manifesting. So wakefulness, Jagrat, Swapna, which is the dream-like state in sleep, and Sushupti, which is dreamless state. So all these appear in Turiya, in this pure I experience of consciousness. But Turiya is not easily perceivable because of avidya, of ignorance, and all the other things that obscure the pure I. And usually they say that this Turiya is more easily perceived or accessible in between those states. So just before you fall asleep from wakefulness, or just before you go to dreamless state from the dream state, in that in-between moment, or just before you wake up, you get a glimpse of this Turiya. But Turiyatita is when you are experience this I, feeling this pure I, regardless of the state. So you are always in this I feeling, pure I or Shiva state. The sutras in Shiva Sutra where is spoken about those states are starting with the Sutra 7 in the first chapter. Shiva Sutras has 3 chapters. Each of one is dedicated to a upaya, to a path. First is to Shambhavopaya, second to Shaktopaya, and the last to Anavopaya. And sure, this description of the 5 avasthas or the 5 states, actually they describe mostly the 4th. It's the 4 of them. It's in the first chapter, in the chapter about Shambhavopaya. And this is because they speak about the fact that you have to penetrate all the states with Turiya, with this I feeling, pure I, which you access mainly through meditation and samadhi. And so in the 7th sutra they speak about this kind of, actually the sutra is something like, even during the 3 different states of consciousness, in waking, dreaming and profound sleep, the rapturous experience of I consciousness of the 4th states abide. So what is saying in this translation, which is of it's the translation made by Jayadev Singh. Others differ a little, but all they say that all the 3 states, wakefulness, dreaming and profound sleep, had to be pervaded or penetrated by this 4th, which is the experience of I consciousness. Again, the pure I, not the ego one. So I think this is obvious. And the next sutras from 8 to 10 just go on to describe what means each of those states. So first, in the 8th, Shiva Sutra states that Jnanam Jagrat. So Jnanam, you know, it's knowledge, and Jagrat is this wakefulness state. So this wakefulness state is knowledge. What this means is that all knowledge is obtained by direct contact with the external world. So what we perceive through our senses. Jagrat is the wakefulness state in which we perceive the world. And usually they describe this Jagrat, this wakefulness state, that is the object, what we experience. The next one, it's Svapno Vikalpah. So the 9th sutra states Svapno Vikalpah. So Swapno is the state of dreaming, usually when we sleep, but you will see you can sleep with eyes open, and we know that. But usually when we sleep and dream, we have this kind of experience in which our mind creates what we experience. So there is no external object, it's just an internal object. It's what we experience as object inside our mind. This is Vikalpa. It's an mental image, a thought, but a thought like with all the things that are specific to the real world, but there is no real world. So our senses don't have contact with the external world anymore in the dream state. So this is the knowing part. So first Jagrat is object, this is the knowing part, what we know about the world. And so all knowledge is obtained by the activity of the mind without us being in the external, with indirect contact with external world. Say Kshemaraja when he comment this sutra. And sure, in this definition we can include the dreaming with open eyes. So because when you are in this kind of open eye dreaming, you are not what you think in that moment is not correlated with what you perceive in the world. It's just in your mind. And the last one in the 10th sutra, it's aviveko maya shushuptam, which means that the dreamless state, it's a lack of awareness on any plane, and it seems like maya, it seems like an illusion. And sometimes maya is described like the dreamless sleep. Not because we have no experience, but because it's this lack of awareness. When you are in this dream, when you are in this state of dreamless sleep, you don't remember much. You just remember, I had slept, but you don't remember what happened during that time. And sure, the sleeping part is very complex because sometimes we don't remember that we dreamed. Sometimes we remember just vaguely that we had some dreams, but we don't remember what those dreams are. And sometimes we have very vivid dreams, which are very clear and lifelike experiences. But the deep sleep part, it's like we don't remember. Maybe just we slept very well, or we didn't sleep so well, but what happened during that period is just a blank. But in the yogic tradition, they say, sure, even if you don't remember what happened, you still have this awareness that you were. You didn't stop existing when you fell asleep and then start existing again when you wake up. So there is this continuity of consciousness, but the consciousness have no content, have no object. So for this reason is this lack of awareness, because the consciousness is not aware of anything. So this is the subject. When you are in this dreamless sleep, you are just the subject. There is no knowing and there is no object of knowledge. It's just the subject. So it's like from this point of view, the dreamless sleep is just more closely to the eye consciousness, because you are the subject, but you are an unconscious subject. So even if you are closer, you are not aware of this. But they say, because you are closer to the Atman, to the pure self, then you are feeling better when you are waking up, because you are in that close contact with your deeper self, even if you are unconsciousness. Even my English in this evening is a bit sketchy. So even if you are unconscious about what happened, you were closer to yourself. So for this reason, they consider that the deep sleep is very necessary to our life because keeps us in contact with our deeper self, with our deeper existence. Now, to get back to our subject, what happens is that every experience, every state of consciousness has a reflection in the others. So in Jagrat, in the wakefulness state, we have a reflection of the other three. So for this reason, in tradition, they have like this kind of subcategories in which they define, okay, in Jagrat, when you are awake, so Jagrat, you are awake. So this is the experience when you are just having the experience of the senses and you just experience the object of the world. And sure, we think that this is the usual state when you just experience the world and you receive the information from your senses and enjoy the world or suffer the world depending on your moment of life. But usually this kind of experience, when you are just immersed in the external world, because usually the mind is associating itself with the external world, it's considered unawakened, even if it's the wakefulness state. From the point of view of the spirituality, you are unawakened because you are identified with the object of your knowledge, with the external world. You are not aware of yourself, you are just aware of what happens outside of yourself. So this Jagrat is considered abuddha, unawakened. And is the usual state in which we are forgetting about ourselves when we are in the world. Then we have the reflection of swapna, which is called Jagrat Swapna. So is the dream in the wakefulness. And usually is the moment when we have this kind of experience in which our mind creates the experience. And usually, you see, we gravitate between these two states, Jagrat or Swapna Jagrat. Sometimes we just fall on our thoughts and just think about our stories, even if we interact with the world, but we are half aware of what we are doing because we are just immersed in our inner story. Or sometimes we just let our mind run the show and we are losing all awareness and just stay with our eyes open, but with our mind dreaming, with eyes open. That daydreaming, they call it daydreaming. So this is the dream in the Jagrat, because our awareness shifts from the object of the experience to the knowledge of that object. So the way we experience that object, the story that we tell about that object. So is usually, for example, if we have let's take again the mouse. So if we have this mouse, so I can look at it and just experience it with the form, the texture, and all the things. And don't think about anything else, just experience the mouse. So this is Jagrat Jagrat. When I am becoming aware that I have some experience about the mouse, I know what is doing, what is good for, and I remember that I use it, and I don't know what brand is, or all the things that are the knowledge about this object. I shift my awareness from the actual object to my knowledge about that object. So this is what is happening when we have this interference of the dream state. Again, dream is just a word, it's not like you are actually dreaming, but you are experience the thoughts, ideations or concepts. Let's tell them like this. Concepts which are in your mind about the objects in the real world. So vikalpa, the term, means that this mental image about an object. A mental image is a very complex thing again. It's not just a picture of the object, but is this complex image which has the visual image, 3D visual image, the texture, even the smell if it has one, the memories about it. All the things are in this very complex vikalpa, which means this mental image. So don't refer to it as just a snapshot, a picture of the object, but this complex concept that is that object in your mind. So this is the knowledge part. So the real object is the object of knowledge, but your mental image, your vikalpa, is this knowledge of the object, which is more complex and implies a lot of things. So this experience is called Buddha, awakened. Awakened because you are becoming aware that there is not just an external object. There is this knowledge of the object which you experience when you are interacting or seeing an object. Then we have this sushupti, the dreamless sleep reflected in Jagrat. So it's called Jagrat Sushupti. And usually this means like a state of mental void. Because now, if we refer to this process, we are aware that there is someone having this experience of the object. So is this three part of object, knowledge, and the knower, the one who is knowing the object. And usually this kind of experience is that mental blank. Your mind is void of any concept or thought, and you are just staring in the void without any experience. And from time to time, we have this kind of spacing out. And if someone asks us what you are thinking about, because you are looking very thinking about it, so you are like those thinker statues. And if someone asks you what you are thinking about, you are not able to tell them anything. You are just there without thinking about something. So it's like you are not aware of yourself, but you are more yourself. It's usually in meditation, it's like a void which is inert, without going somewhere. Because we have this mental void that take us to the self-knowledge, like Patanjali says in his description of yoga. Yoga is the cessation of the vrittis, of the mental vortexes, then you experience your true nature. So what Patanjali says when he defines yoga is that the cessation of the mental vortices or agitation of the mind is not just for that you have a blank mind without thoughts, but is for you to experience your true nature. But if you remain in that stage of I have no thoughts, it's just this kind of dreamless sleep in wakefulness. Yeah, you have no thoughts, and so what? Then you have this Turiya in Jagrat, this fourth state reflected in Jagrat, called Jagrat Turiya, in which, so sure, this experience of mental void, of blankness, it's called Prabuddha, well awakened, because it's just a step. Okay, I have a quiet mind. If I just turn to myself, if I just ask myself in that moment, who am I may have a deeper experience. And this is the Jagrat Turiya, when we experience this true nature, this Svarupa, how it's called in Yoga Sutras. So this is the perfect awakeness or supra Buddha. So from the standpoint of a usual man, this is just Jagrat, this is just wakefulness. Even if we have this different experience, the man usually, we usually called I am awake. We don't differentiate between this kind of, okay, I can be awake, dreamily awake, or deep sleep awake. We are just awake. And yogis call these states pindashta, which are just the objective state, or the way we experience the world. And Gyanis call this sarvato badra, which means is the experience. Sarva means all, so is the experience of all the world. Because for Gyanis, for the people that are on the Jnana path, all the world is full of bliss, full of the divine bliss, even if we are not very aware of this. But if you impregnate the wakefulness state with Turiya, with this fourth state, you start to see the divine in everything. It's what in Upanishads and other texts, it's called pratyahara. Pratyahara usually in the yogic context means interiorization. I bring my senses inside of me and I am isolating myself from the outer world. But in the text of the yogic tradition, usually they define pratyahara in the kind of way in which is described here, that everything you see is God, everything you taste is God, everything you smell is God, everything you touch is God. It's not like you separate yourself from the world, but you see your inner self, your true self in the world. So it's a way of understanding different pratyahara. So sure, for the first steps in meditation, in yoga, you have to close your senses to the outer world so you can be more aware of your inner world. But then is this process of, okay, I open my eye and I see this essence everywhere. And I open my nostrils and I smell this essence everywhere. And I taste this essence in everything. So it's a bit different. For Gyanis, this is the reason that they call this state Sarvatobhadra. Sarva means all and Bhadra means beneficial, good. So when you impregnate all the states with Turiya, you get this Sarvatobhadra, which you experience with your eyes open in the world. And sure, we will see in the second part of this meeting that this is a part of the Shaiva way in which you want to experience this God is everywhere. Yeah, you can taste it, you can touch it, you can smell it, and such and such. So next we have the way in which we experience all the states in the dream world. Because sure, in the dream is like our mind makes the reality based on our past experiences, maybe combining them using imagination and getting something entirely new as experience. So sure, we are, I don't know, we are men, but we can experience the body of a woman or the experience of a woman. We are young and experience the way in which an older person experiences the world, or the other way around. We are old, but we can dream we are a baby. We are alive, we can dream we are dead, and such and such. Our mind creates the reality in that moment. Again, based on samskaras. Samskaras are those marks that all the experience make in our mind. Is like they are like an energy of things. Is the way the things are feeling, not the way the things are like in a movie or in experience. So we have first the reflection of wakefulness in dream. So sure, when the dream world, the world that we experience in the dreams are made, fabricated by those vikalpas, those concepts, those mental images, when we experience this Jagrat in Swapna, the dream world is very clear. So it's those kind of dreams that we remember very clear. It's like when you wake up from this kind of dream, it's a bit hard to separate the dream world from the real world, because they are so much alike. It's like those that saying of Lao Tzu, he dreamt that he was a butterfly, and when he woke up, he asked himself, am I Lao Tzu who dreamt it's a butterfly, or am I a butterfly that now dreams it's Lao Tzu or Chuang Tzu? I don't remember exact which one. So when we wake up from this state, we are not in the first moments, then we are able to separate the real world from the dream world, but we have a bit of confusion. So because of this vividness of the dreamlike, this state is called in Malini Vijaya, it's called Gata Gata, because we go between those two worlds without making too much a difference. And sure, in this kind of experience, even if it's very vivid and it's like a real world, we experience weird things. So, but we don't question them, because in the laws of dream world, they are okay. So maybe we step out from our room and we are in the other part of the world. But for us, it's just normal in the dream. We don't question that in the moment. So for this reason, we can at some point understand that it's just a dream, but we are awake in that dream. We are aware that we are in a dream world. But we have then the reflection of dream in the dream, which is called swapna, so dream in dream. And usually in this experience, the way we experience this is very, very disorderly, very vague, very hazy. So we know if someone wakes us in that moment, we know that we are dreaming, but we don't remember what or how. It's just a feeling that, yes, I was dreaming, and there are fragments or pieces of images without coherency, without being very logical or understandable. But sure enough, it's like a dream, but again, it's very incoherent. And for this reason, it's called suvikshipta, which means that it's chaotic, it's disorderly. And then we have this shushupti in swapna, which means the experience of the dreamless state in the dream. And in that moment is like we are at peace. It's maybe a dream which is not very clear, but we are at peace. It's a peaceful sleep. And we don't feel, we don't feel this kind of, sure, if I dream that I am a woman, I don't feel that this is a problem for me in that dream, even if I have a man's body, or the other way around. Or if I step out of my room and I find myself in the other part of the city, I don't feel that this is a problem, like in Jagrat state. But the difference is that in Jagrat, when you are becoming aware that you are dreaming, and it's like you awake yourself in the dream, you have the possibility to act, to make something. So if you are become aware that you are dreaming, for example, you can fly. Usually for me it's like this. If I am becoming aware, I just fly because it's such a pleasant experience to be weightless and just fly about. But in this shushupti, you are not capable of changing anything. You are just experience the, yes, it's peaceful, it's clear, but it's like this. And this is called samgata, because in this experience you have this kind of understanding that this is the way the dream works. Even if it's strange when you wake up, in the dream you are very convinced that this is the way that it's supposed to be. For this reason it's called samgata. The first Jagrat in swapna, wakefulness in dream, was gata, because was confusing, because you didn't make any difference between wakefulness and dream. But here you understand that this is the law of the dream and you are at peace with it. And then sure, we have this reflection of turiya, Swapna Turiya, in which you don't lose your self-consciousness. You are experience the deeper part of you, that Svarupa, that essential nature, even if you are in a dream. So it's kind of, you are continuing your meditation when you are dreaming, and you stay centered and without losing yourself in the dream. And this is called Susamahita, because you are continuing to be that pure I. You are not losing yourself in the dream world. And sure, again, for the most part, we just name this part of the sleep swapna, the dream state, in which all the vikalpas, all that mental images appear and create those stories without direct contact with the external world. But for the yogis, this is called padashta, which is the way in which our own self is experienced in the dream. And for the jnani, this is called vyaptis, or pervasion, in which our self is present in all the experiences, all the mental states. Because again, the dream usually is the knowing part, is the way we experience things. So for the jnani, the self, Atman, pervades. For this reason it's called Vyapti. And then we have Shushupti. And sure, in Shushupti it's very hard to make a difference between all the reflections. Still, if we try, we have Sushupti Jagrat, which is the reflection of wakefulness in deep sleep, which is sometimes called Udita or risen, because in this experience, even if it's unconsciousness, we feel the seeds of the experience, those samskaras, being present there and generating different tendencies, even if those are not manifesting themselves in vikalpas or other experience. We just feel all these seeds present in our mind. And because we are aware of this, even if we are in that void implied by the Shushupti, it's called Shushupti Jagrat. Then we have Sushupti Swapna, which is the dream in the dreamless, called in Tantras Vipula, which means thick, so it's very dense. And it's called because in this experience, those samskaras, those traces of the experiences are being experienced more vividly. They are becoming more strong and give the experience this kind of density. Daralka.
Just a second. Thank you. So you said about the previous state that you can feel the states of samskaras. So how could that be? I mean, how it's like? It's like you take care what you think of, or how do you do?
You don't do it. So because it's an void, so you can't do anything in that experience, but you have this kind of so usually the tradition speaks about these samskaras as being the seeds for the future karma or for the future experiences. So imagine that you have handful of seeds. You know that those are seeds. You don't know what they do or how they will manifest or what kind of plants will grow from them, but you are feeling them present. So if, for example, to be more specific, in the day before your sleep, you have some kind of experience that created a very intense or strong samskara, which manifests, let's say, just for the sake of the example, manifests as a nostalgia, as a sadness or longing for a good time that was before and now is not. So when you sleep in that dreamless kind of sleep, you, even if it's a void, you feel or continue to feel that something which is kind of nostalgia, but you cannot say what created or what triggered. It's just there as a thing in background, in the back of your experience. And when you wake up, you can wake up with this kind of nostalgia, but without understanding what or why or where it comes from. And in the next part, these kind of things become more dense, but again, they are not clear enough. Yeah, they just create a kind of like when you wake up, you feel like you had a heavy sleep. We usually call it I slept heavily. It's like, okay, I had a long sleep, but I don't feel like that sleep was refreshing enough, or because those kind of samskaras were there present more densely and created that density of the sleep.
I got it. Thank you.
And sure, then we have this Shushupti in Shushupti, which is the dreamless sleep in the dreamless sleep, which it's called Shanta in Tantras, which means, Shanta means peacefulness, because this is the kind of deep sleep that we want. That kind of, when you wake up from this kind of sleep, you just feel good. You just feel at peace. It's like all the worries and the problems of the world that were present before you go to sleep are erased, and you are awakened to a new life without those, or those problems are in a very far past. And I think all the people have this experience when they slept truly well and wake up like all the worries are in another life, even if they are just the day before. So this happens when you experience this Shushupti in Shushupti, which is that tranquil or Shanta or peacefulness that you experience in this kind of deep sleep in deep sleep, without those samskaras that troubles you, just peace. And sure, this is the closest experience to samadhi that a normal person have, which happens in this kind of deep sleep in deep sleep, and that makes you to wake up like fresh and with a clean slate, and your mind is so at peace and such. Sorry, my mouse was going somewhere. Now, we have left with Turiya. And sure enough, even if Turiya is this kind of I feeling that impregnates all the states and is present in all the states as a background, that consciousness in which all the experience manifest, they all have a reflection. Only thing that doesn't exist in Turiya is Turiya in Turiya. So we don't have the this kind of I in I, because you just are, you don't have to be 2 times I. 1 time I, it's enough. So for this reason we have Jagrat in Turiya, Turiya Jagrat, which is the experience in which the mind as we know it retires completely in the I feeling. Because again, when we speak about Turiya, usually is the experience we have in meditation. We can have it outside meditation, but usually we experience it more aware of it when we meditate. So the first is that moment in which the mind goes in that stillness that we want, and its functions cease, and we experience that no mind, so, or beyond mind, which in tantras and in yoga is called manonmana, the state beyond mind. Then we have this dream in Turiya Swapna, in which the yogi crosses the boundaries of the limitation of knowledge and enters that space of limitless knowledge, that omniscience, that for this reason it's called Ananta, without limit, infinite, limitless. So this experience is of limitless. Our mind has no thoughts, it's still, but we experience this infinity, going beyond all the limits of knowledge. Again, because we are referring, when we're speaking about Jagrat, we are speaking about an object. When we are speaking about Swapna, usually we speak about that knowledge. And when we speak about Shushupti, we speak about the subject, the one who has the experience. And so we have the last one, Turiya Shushupti, the dreamless in Turiya, which is called Sarvata in the Tantras. Sarvata means all things. Like Sarva, it's all, but this is the experience of all things, which it's called that because we experience all as a form of Shakti or as a form of consciousness. All things are divine energy or divine consciousness. And sure, this experience is going in meditation beyond the way in which we usually have experienced the things. And when this I feeling that is Turiya is experienced with the eyes open, they call it the Bhava Samadhi, the Samadhi experienced in the external world, and without any differentiation, so without different parts. This is Turiyatita, beyond Turiya. Because you see, in Turiya we have this kind of differentiation between the object, the knowing, or the subject, and different stages of the meditation that we usually experience with eyes closed and in the staying in the formal position. And so then we get to this experience in which samadhi is everywhere. So this eye feeling doesn't have to be only when you are in your cave or in your room or in your meditation place, but it's everywhere. And sure, the start of this was that sutra in which it was said that Turiya has to penetrate all the three states. And we see that Turiyatita means this penetration, this presence in all the states. In this Shiva Sutra, sure, they are speaking about Turiya in some more other place. For example, the next sutra, which is the 11th of this chapter, of this first chapter, they say that the one who enjoys the oneness of awareness in all the three states, waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, becomes the master of all energies, of all senses from another point of view. So he can enjoy the world. So this is the way they put it. When you experience that Turiyatita, that beyond Turiya, you can truly enjoy the world, because the world is consciousness and everything that appears is just a different taste. Sure, in Hridaya we have that samarasa, which means the same taste. All the world has this same taste of divinity, of the divine, but in the same time, everything that we experience, which has a different rasa, rasa means a quality of experience. In the modern philosophy, they call it qualia, the quality of your conscious experience. But this rasa is the term that comes from the tasting part. So when you taste the food, has some savor to it, some taste. So each experience, they say, has a taste. And in Shaiva, they have 9 different rasa, which are different kind of taste that experiences have. From, I don't know, there is a Shanta rasa, which means peacefulness taste, angry taste, loving taste, disgusting taste. So each experience has the nuance of it. But in all these nuances, you recognize this samarasa of divine, this presence of the consciousness, even if they are different. And when you have this, you can enjoy an experience regardless of its nature. Because usually our manas, our inferior mind, separates the world between what I like and what I dislike. And I want more of what I like, and I want none or less of what I dislike. Our buddhi separates the world between what is good or moral and what is bad or immoral. And usually I want to do more moral things to gain some merit and accumulate some good karma, and I want to do less of the bad things or the immoral things, so I have less of a bad karma. And sure enough, sometimes buddhi and manas get in conflict, because manas says, I like this, but buddhi says, but yes, this is not morally good, so maybe you don't do this. But you see, when you separate the world in this kind of duality, you cannot enjoy it, because at some point something it's or not pleasant or immoral or something like this. But when you experience the world from this point of samarasa, even if you have adversity or pain or suffering, it's just a different nuance of experience of the consciousness. A nuance that you experience and you can enjoy it, not in a sadomasochistic way in which you enjoy pain, but you can appreciate this different kind of experience even if it's unpleasant and painful. And for this reason, the world become an interesting place that you can appreciate regardless of the kind of experience that comes your way. Other way, you will always try to modify your environment to suit your preferences or your moral code or all these things. And you see around you that all the people try to do this. I want to make the world more pleasant for me, and to make the world to fit my moral code. And sure enough, my moral code is not your moral code, or my pleasant thing is not your pleasant thing, and from this adversity and conflict and such, if you can experience all as being consciousness, or have this kind of rasa of savor of the experience, then the world is just an interesting place to live and have an experience in. Now, the practice that we want to do is to try to bring this kind of understanding to our meditation. And if we spoke about these sutras in Shiva Sutra in the chapter 3, they continue to speak about the Turiya. There, sure, the chapter 3 is about Anavopaya, the way of the individual, and it's about yogic practices and such. And after you gain your access to Turiya, to this fourth state, to this centering in your heart and keeping the awareness of the heart, they say that in the 20th sutra, it's said that the fourth state must be expanded like oil, so that it pervades all the three: waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. So this kind of spread like oil is like the oil, it's impregnating things without being very very forcible about it. It's just sliding into place, if you know. So it's like with this kind of naturalness, you bring the awareness of the heart in each of these kind of states. And to get to the way in which we can do this, sure, there are various modalities in which we can do this. In Vijnana Bhairava, for example, they speak about how to go to sleep in a way in which you are very aware, and being in that place between wakefulness and dreaming, you are experiencing Turiya, and from that you can expand it. But the usual way, it's something that we already talk about, but which is done now in a kind of wave-like pattern. So we spoke about Shambhavi Mudra a few meetings back. Shambhavi Mudra, which was that meditation, very simply speaking, meditation with eyes open, trying to keep the awareness of the heart while you have the experience of the world. And usually they take this in that wave-like pattern. So you open your eyes for a while and interact with the world through your senses, and you start to lose your awareness of the heart a bit. Then you close your eyes again, go deeper into your heart, then open again your eyes and try to expand that experience into the world. Then you lose yourself a little bit, then you come back into yourself, and this is called Krama Mudra. Sure, in Shaiva tradition there are more techniques that are called Krama Mudra, because Krama just means succession, steps. So there are some others, Krama Mudra, but usually they speak about this kind of wave, like go out, go in, go out, go in, because at some point you will find a balance between in and out. And that balance is the awareness of the heart that is present in the world. And I think it's a very important experience to have, because usually in our life we tend to separate our spirituality and meditation from the rest of the experience of the world. And for this reason, sometimes we find it hard to interact with the world after a good meditation or after a good retreat. We want to just to remain isolated and don't interact with anyone or anything, just being there in our heart. But you see, from the point of view of Shaiva, they said, no, you have to take your heart into the world. Take your awareness, take this view of everything is consciousness, take it into the world. Be in the world, keeping this awareness of the heart. And this kind of Krama Mudra, this kind of wave, like go out, go in, go out, go in, until you find enough balance, helps you interact with the world from the point of view of the awareness of the heart, which changes a bit the perspective of this duality between spiritual life and mundane or usual kind of stuff of life. Sure, it's not an easy thing to do, and we will have setbacks or problems, but it's worth trying, because if we find this balance, the world becomes a magical place. It's not the place that snatch you from your spirituality and throw you in the throes of your work or other things, but is something that keeps you in your heart, helps you to be more aware and present. And sure, usually it's not like this simple. They say that you first have to get into samadhi, then you open your heart and eyes and keep the samadhi, and then go back and go deeper into samadhi and such and such. So implies that you have to have a higher level of meditation. But from my experience, for my limited experience, I saw that it's enough to just bring a bit of stillness and peace and love from your meditation through this kind of mudra into the experience of the outer world, to change the way in which you interact with people and situations, and it's good enough to enrich your life and make it more enjoyable, more more beautiful. And then it's like a feedback loop, you know, because when you enjoy more the world, then you are more in contact with your heart, and when you are more in contact with your heart, you enjoy more the world, and this kind of sustain itself from some point on. And usually I prefer to end my meditation in this kind of way. So opening a little eyes, just taste the waters to see how my self goes out through my eyes to the world, to grasp it. And when I feel that I start to lose my centeredness, go back in and go a little bit deeper, because what is interesting is when you try to keep your awareness going out, you usually, when you come back, you go a bit deeper than before, because you are more aware of what is your heart in that moment. And I do this for a few minutes, like not much, but enough to find a little balance and go out without feeling that I will missing something, or if I open my eyes, I will miss my heart or my meditative experience. If you have questions about what we spoke or the practice.
I have a question.
Sure.
Last time when we were doing the practice, the Soham or Homsa practice, I found through the week that I could stay aware of that. I could stay aware of my breathing in God, and then with the exhale, surrender. Not consistently, obviously, but from time to time, if I'm walking in the woods or if I'm making dinner, I can be aware of that. But in that moment, I think of it as breathing in God and breathing, exhaling the surrender. But I'm concerned that keeps me stuck in the duality, that by doing that, I'm missing the I feeling. It feels more like God and me as opposed to the I feeling. Can you say something about that?
Yes, if you remember, there was a little part of the process that was that God and I meet in the heart.
Yes.
So if you are just staying aware a little in that balance point between in and out, then the two of them are one. And for sure, that practice is reflecting in what we are doing now, because it's the same process of out and in, until out and in there are no different. So this is the reason that we practice these kind of things, because at some point we start to understand that there is no difference, there is no out, there is no in, there is only one place in which some breathing happens. So, but at first, sure, it helps us to be more aware of the here and now, and keeps us from having stories and all the crazy things. But then we have to be more subtle in our approach, to start to feel those moments of balance in which things are no different.
And
because
that's in the pause.
That is in the pause, but then the pause is everything. It's not just a moment.
Yes.
but it has to just turn yourself, because you start to feel that pose it's everything, and the movement it's just some small part of the things. And again, in this kind of experience that we spoke about today, Turiya is that pose, is that moment, you know, because they said Turiya is between wakefulness and sleep, is between sleep and dreamless sleep. So it's actually the whole experience, but we only see it like a gap between two states at first. But then it's like oil spreading, and all is Turiya. Is no Jagrat, no Swapna, no Shupti, all is Turiya. And this is like Turiyatita, beyond Turiya. So yes, it's like in Vijnana Bhairava and in Shaivism, usually all these moments are like doors. And you see the door is just a little bit cracked in that small moment. But if you slip through that crack in the space between, then it's infinity, it's openness. For now, we just cracking the door. We cracking the door. We still not going through, but we start to be aware that the door is not closed. It's a little bit ajar, and if we are continuing to be aware and more aware, and because the awareness is not something like equal from the start to the end, it becomes more subtle, and it becomes to discern between very, 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 very subtle things, like this cracked door. It's just a sliver crack, but you become more aware, and that sliver becomes like a big gap, and at some point is not just that you can pass through, you can take all the world with you. And
thank you.
yes, because this is the thing that they say, okay, this crack is called Madhya. Madhya means in the middle. So these Madhya places are between breathings, between thoughts, between states. There are a lot of places in between, but actually in between is everything. Things are put, it's like when you look in a room, you see objects in that room, but actually the room is full of space in which are some objects. Space is more than the objects, but because your mind is used to see what objects are, doesn't see the space in which that objects are. In our mind is the same, is that the thoughts, these vikalpas, are the objects in that space that is consciousness. And because our mind is so used to see the stories and the objects, ignores the space in which all things are. And sure enough, at first we just practice all these things like a technique, like a practice, and we do it like a mechanical thing, and we do this step and that step, and again this step and again that step. But at some point our awareness becomes more subtle, and we start to get beyond these kind of technical things. If you remember in the first meeting, or the second, I don't remember exactly, we spoke about the balance between in-breathing and out-breathing, and those extreme points. There is a point which is outside our nostrils, and there is a point that is in the heart. And one is called the heart, and one is called Svadashanta, the 12 fingers width or distance. And usually the Dvadashanta part is interpreted from a spiritual point of view, so it's Brahmarandra, the opening of Brahma, or Sahasrara, or it's something spiritual. But sometimes it's just the point 12 fingers with distance from your nostrils in the front of you. And when you start to become aware of this, at first is an external point through which your breathing goes and an internal point in which your breathings go in. But when you practice long enough, it's like your breathing is just an expansion in and out without going to some point specifically. And this in and out become obsolete. Is like there is no in and there is no out. It's just expansion in contraction of my awareness. And the breathing becomes spanda, becomes a pulsation of the living principle. And you just pulsating in the rhythm of the life without feeling in or out, just pulsating. If you have another question. Then let's... Oh,
yes.
okay, Masha.
I do have a question. Yeah, I'm curious about the states, the avasthas that we went through today. Are we, do you recommend that we try to actively engage these? Like, for example, like a sushupti, papna, or probably not that one, but sushupti, like trying to engage into that deep, peaceful state and become aware of that, and how would we go about doing something like that? Or is it just that these are like moments of grace to experience these and we just kind of go into sleep and see what happens? Or what do you recommend?
For sure, what my experience shown is that if you meditate before you're sleeping, before you go to sleep, and your meditation is deep enough, then that, because it's a samskara, it's a mark that you make on your mind, then usually my dreams are more clear and vivid and I remember them, and my deep sleep, it's like shanta, is like peaceful, because I can still my mind, and then I'm becoming more aware of these gaps between wakefulness and dream, and I can go to sleep like meditation, not like I want to forget everything and just be like a log and go out of this world. And I go to meet myself in the sleep, and I saw that this changes much the sleeping pattern, and I wake up like I was meditating and not just sleeping. But I don't know how to actually engage with those states, because they are like experiences. They are described like this because you can recognize what you experienced, and not that you have to create that experience. Maybe more they want to, like I said, to spread turiya throughout them. So for this reason, meditating before sleeping is like you try to keep that awareness of the heart going through these changes of what happens in the sleep. And I think this is the way that you can change. And sure, you can have those experiences of awakening in your dream, and like I said, flying or going through walls, or just sometimes just meditating in sleep, in dream state. And it's a beautiful thing to do if you can, because the experience that you have when you awake in a dream, it's that you are more free than you are in the wakefulness state, because you are not experiencing the density of your body and the limitation of your usual body. What your mind wants, that happens. And usually this gives you a feeling of, sure, powerfulness. You are feeling that in that world that your mind creates, you are all powerful. You can do literally what you want. You have no limits. And it's a feeling of joy and power and freedom that you cannot compare it with the real world, you know. And this gives you like a glimpse in what can be in the Turiya or Turiyatita. If in that kind of experience, which is a dream state, you have this joy of being, which is extraordinary, and this freedom, which you feel that is limitless. What is when you experience a deep samadhi, which is thousandfold more? It's worth experience. Just to make your faith stronger, faith in meditation and such. Because after that kind of experience, you are, okay, I know this is what I want to do all my life. For just that small freedom and small experience of limitless freedom and joy. And
thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. I think it's helpful to see that intentionality, it sounds like, with setting up the circumstances to promote an experience like that with meditation before bed is just, you know, I typically approach sleep with going into it as like just, you know, something to turn off, right? To like finally just like turn off and rest.
Yes, I know. Usually we do like this.
Yeah, so if we can bring more, I guess, like you're saying, consciousness to the act of, you know, wanting to be more aware in all states of consciousness and just that intentionality, it sounds like, and not necessarily trying to control, but having the openness to experience, then that's the practice with it, actually.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I think it's important not to think about it like a job, like I have to do this. It's important to do this. I want to meditate until my sleep befalls me, and because if you do it like this, it's like a contraction and you don't experience that freedom. For this reason, it's important to go to sleep like I will go to meet myself, and I go to be deeper with myself. And for this reason, I am just, it's like, okay, I have more moments with me. It's like, and this is the way we have to approach meditation, for example. We have to approach meditation like the moment in which we are with ourselves in the deepest way possible, and we go there with that openness to grace and to be as well as we can and experience the freedom of just being consciousness. Not like I read about it, it's written that it's good for myself and for my mental or for my stress levels, and I don't feel like doing it, but I promise myself that I will do it every day, and I just sit there and my mind goes every place possible, and I just wait my timer to go off to get to my other things. If you go like this in meditation, it's not going to give you much. But if you go like, okay, this is my moment, this is my moment in which I will meet with my deeper self, and I will experience that freedom and joy of being, and then I will take that joy of being with me into my life, and be open to experience everything with that kind of interest. And like Abhinavagupta had, I try now to read the book, which is a bit difficult because it's in French and my French is rusty, but had that a bit of thing which was very interesting. Abhinavagupta spoke about two kinds of peoples. One which is called a gourmand, which is people that enjoys food for the pleasure that the taste of the food gives them, and a glutton, which is a person that eats because eating it's feeling him feel full and just for the sake of eating, not for the sake of the taste of the food. So he make this difference between the way we approach life and meditation. So you can approach life to just get that food inside of you, and the more the better, or you can savor it and taste it like a fine diner, or like this kind of gourmand. Was funny because was a French, and sure, the French are famous for their cuisine, and the example was, I think, was picked because was a French book. So let's meditate. Meditation will be actually very simple. We try to go into our heart and open our heart and experience that awareness of the heart as much as we can. Then I will tell you when. Open the eyes for a little and actually feel that way in which our awareness tends to get out through our senses to meet the external world. But trying to keep our awareness of the heart, even if our senses want to embrace the world and go out. And after a while we go back in, and we will do these kind of things for a while, but do it like I said earlier before. Imagine that you are a wave, and the wave just gently crashes on the shore. Not those kind of big waves that splashes on the shore, but that kind of gentle waving of the ocean, or maybe a seaside. Ocean usually are crashing waves, but a seaside or a lake that kind of gets those gentle waves. So you go out, you go in that gentle movement of your awareness in and out, until you start to feel that kind of balance in which you are not feeling that you are going out, you are not feeling that you are going in, you are just in the heart, and heart is in and out the same. For a few waves I will tell you, but then I will let you find your own rhythm of going in and out, because it's important to find your own rhythm, not mine, in this kind of in and out of awareness. So let's get in a meditation position in which we have the back straight. If you stay on a chair, try not to lean on the back seat. Try to keep your back straight by himself. Shoulders a little to the back, opening the chest. finding that inner balance between firmness of the posture and relaxation. In this way we can stay still for longer periods of time. The stillness of the body becomes the stillness of the mind. And we will do Atma Vichara, the introspection, asking ourselves, who am I? Trying to experience the answer. It's like we ask the question, but we are the answer, because the mind cannot answer. The answer is existence itself. In this way we become more aware of our deep nature, of that Svarupa, the true form, which manifests itself like a tremor of the heart, that pulsation of the life, of consciousness. Who am I? We can use the pause between breathings at the end of inhalation, just before the exhalation starts. That moment of inner balance, of equilibrium, in which inhalation and exhalation meet, in which I and God meets. That point of pure existence, pure consciousness, pure bliss, Satchitananda. Who am I? Now, keeping this awareness of the heart, just slightly open the eyes and continue that Atma Vichara, that searching for the heart, keeping the awareness of the heart. We can continue to ask ourselves, who am I? We let this I feeling expand with our awareness of the world is like our heart goes bigger, embracing the things that we see, the things that we hear, smell, taste, touch. Everything is consciousness, everything is heart. If we feel that we lose ourselves in this experience of the world, we just slowly close our eyes and go back to that experience of I. Going deeper and deeper into our hearts. We feel that tremor of the heart, that spanda, that pulsation of life, of consciousness, of divinity. That expands from the center of our awareness and again we slightly open our eyes, letting our hearts embracing what we see, what we feel in the world surrounding us. But we try to keep our awareness of the heart, that view that everything is consciousness, everything is bliss. Chitananda Rupach. Our true form is consciousness and bliss, embracing everything, being everything. And again, when we feel that we lose ourselves in the world, we slowly close our eyes and go deeper into the I feeling, into the center of our being that we called Hridaya, the heart, Atman, the self. And from now on we continue each in our rhythm. So you will open your eyes when you are feeling confident enough, and then you are closing them when you feel that your experience diminishes in a way, just going in and out like a gentle wave on a sunny shore, with that calmness, without judging, without wishing, without wanting, in and out, until there is no in, there is no out. It's just consciousness and bliss, until we can say like Shankara, Chidananda Rupah, Shivoham, Shivoham. I am consciousness and bliss. Without form, I'm Shiva. Everything is consciousness, everything is bliss. And now, one last time, slightly open your eyes, keeping the awareness of the heart, letting this awareness embrace what you see, what you feel, and we end our short meditation. Again, it's a way to usually end a longer meditation in which you have a deep experience, trying to get that experience into the world and like impregnate the world with the heart and the awareness. In this way, we learn to do the real pratyahara, in which all that we see is God, all that we taste is God, or it's a fragment in an Upanishad in which is said like this. And when you will go to sleep tonight, go to sleep like a meditation. And just sleep and get into the sleep position like you are relaxing not just your body but your mind and getting in touch with your heart and your deeper self. And I think all of you will have a better sleep experience after that. So if you don't have any more questions, we will end our meeting today. And thank you all for being here and see you next time.